All right, well, it looks as if the number of participants has stopped increasing. So I think what we will do is formally begin this webinar on getting ready to apply for studies at Lund University. My name is Timothy Parker. I'm an international communications officer here at Lund University, and I'll be one of your presenters for today. So I'm really looking forward to giving you some information, general information about the university are offering, and about how to make a complete and correct application. And afterwards, we will also have a Q&A session where we can answer any questions you have about your studies. And I'm joined today by my dear colleague, Daniel.
Hello guys, so my name is Daniel Gunnison. I am working as a strategic recruitment manager here at Lund University. I primarily work with what we like to call post-Soviet countries, but I am here to basically talk to you about how to make a complete application, a little bit about the university. So I'm here as a sidekick for Timothy today. So thank you.
And we have an additional sidekick as well. So off screen, we have our colleague Nana, who you cannot actually see, but she'll be in the back end today, helping to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to use the Q&A function to send any questions you have about your studies. And during the presentation, Nana will actually be able to answer those. And then after the presentation, myself and Daniel will also join in and answer some of those questions as well. So any questions, we know that all our applicants always do have a number of questions, and we're here to help. But of course, we put a lot of time and effort into our presentation as well. So we do encourage you to listen carefully to that, because we've included a lot of useful information and tips and tricks for your application as well. So today we will be giving you some general information about Lund University, this fantastic world-class university located in southern Sweden that you're thinking of applying to. We're going to cover a little bit of general information about our international bachelor's and master's degree programs. We're going to provide you with an application checklist so you can really make sure that you're covering every single step that you need to in order to make a complete and correct application. We're going to talk about living costs, scholarships, and funding options, which is always a hot topic for our applicants and something that's very, very important. And we're going to finish with the top 10 tips for making a successful application. And then we're going to have a live Q&A. So there's plenty of exciting stuff to get through today. So Daniel, would you like to take it away and tell us a little bit about Lund University?
Of course. So the university is over 350 years old. So we were founded in 1666. And we have been consistently ranked among the top 100 in the world for quite some time now. So I think we can go to the next slide. So we were ranked at number 85 in QS rankings in 2024. And the good thing about Lund University is that we are a full university. We're a comprehensive and research-intensive university. We have 9 different faculties. We're also very big in general. We have 46,000 students. We have more than 8,400 staff members. And about 28% of our international students, 25% of our students, our population is basically international students. They are from over 130 countries, which is something that we are very, very proud of. We also have about 140 different degree programs that are taught completely in English. Obviously, we have quite a few more in Swedish. If anyone knows Swedish, you can apply for thousands of programs, basically. But we have 140 degree programs that are in English language. And one other thing that we are very, very proud of is the fact that we are home to many of the world-leading research environments. And in Lund at the moment, the two we are focusing the most on are basically the MAX4 and the European Spallation Source research facilities that are both into material sciences and health science and medical science. So I think we'll talk a little bit about them later, but they're really, really cool facilities that are built here in Lund at the moment. Another thing that we are very proud of in Sweden in general, and also the university, we were placed as the number 12 in the QS Sustainability World Rankings for 2023. And sustainability is something that is very important to Swedes in general. I mean, I'm a normal Swede, but that's something that we really live by. We try to live sustainable lives. We try to do our best to be as environmentally friendly as possible. And that's something you can see if you come to study in Sweden. You will feel it in the neighborhood where you will be living. You will feel it at the university. You will basically feel it everywhere. It's very important to us that we are trying to not abuse Earth more than necessary, but still living a good life, obviously. I think we can go to the next slide here. Another thing that we are very proud of is the fact that we have been placed very highly on the Times Higher Education for the most international universities in the world rankings for 2023. We have the 61st place. And a lot of people, when you're looking at these rankings, and especially when I was a student myself way back, I mean, it doesn't really say that much. Like, I say, what does it mean to be placed number 12 or number 61? So it could be nice to just highlight the fact that there are over 16,000 universities that are listed, well, not listed, but that are competing for these like rankings and everything. So there are over 16,000 like real universities in the world. So being 61st is actually a pretty good thing. So our bachelor's programs, do you want me to talk about this as well, Timothy, or would you like to talk about the bachelor's?
I'm happy to introduce them.
You're more than welcome to.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that introduction, Daniel. And we know there's a lot of students out there as well that are very, very interested in our international bachelor's degree programs, which we can cover for you now. So we offer 10 English taught bachelor's degree programs here at Lund University, and all of these programs are 3 years in duration, which is 180 ECTS credits. All of our bachelor's programs are course-based, which will be concluded with thesis work. So Lund University is a research-intensive university. When you're a student here, if you're studying a bachelor's or master's degree program, you're going to have the opportunity to do your own supervised thesis research. There's also the opportunity for a study abroad semester with one of our over 500 partner universities. And there's actually the possibility to conduct an internship for some of our programs as well, which can be really, really beneficial for many of our international students. So we don't have an extensive offering at bachelor's level. So I can actually tell you all about our bachelor's programs. So there are biomedicine, international business, economy and society, physical geography and ecosystem science, physics, mathematics, development studies, fine arts, and music performance. So those programs are what we do offer at bachelor's level. And of course, we know that you want to know about the entry requirements. So the first thing that you really need to know is that you must have successfully completed your upper secondary studies by the time you apply. So if you are looking to begin your bachelor's degree studies in late August 2024, and we're going to talk about the application deadlines shortly, but you'll soon realize that you need to have completed your upper secondary studies by February 2024. And of course, the one exception is if you're an EU student, that means that you can actually complete your studies a little bit later in June or July. We can, of course, take more questions about that one in the Q&A as well. You always, of course, have to prove that you meet the required level of English 6, and there's a number of ways to do that, which we can talk about later as well. And you need to check the general entry requirements for bachelor studies at universityadmissions.se. And there can, in some cases, be country-specific requirements as well. So depending on the country in which you completed your upper secondary studies, there may be additional country-specific requirements which you need to consider. Of course, there's a number of countries out there, so we cannot cover them all at once. What we say to every single one of our applicants is always check the country-specific requirements that apply to you at universityadmissions.se. So just remember, this is the country-specific requirements that apply to you are where you completed your studies, not where you're born or where you grew up, but where you actually completed your studies. Those are the country-specific requirements that apply. There can also be some program-specific requirements, and you need to see the Requirements and Selection tab found on each program webpage. Now, if you haven't already found our program web pages on our website, this is a fantastic resource for you where we list all of our international degree programs, both at bachelor and master level. And on each program page, you can find a very detailed overview of what each course contains, the entry requirements, the selection criteria. You can see tuition fees. You can see testimonials from former students. So please do take some time to look through the program pages. And the entry requirements to our bachelor's programs are based on the Swedish education system. All right, and we do in fact offer quite a lot more programs at master's level. I can see Daniel's nodding in agreement there. Daniel, perhaps you would like to detail our offering at master's level.
Yes, so just as mentioned by Tim here before, we have about 10 bachelor's programs, but we mentioned that we had 140 plus programs in general. So we have actually more than 130 English taught master's degree programs, and they're basically, well, we're a full-scale university. There are programs in every single type of subject area that you can think of at the university. Well, all our 9 faculties actually have master's degree programs available. Most of them are 2 years of length. So they are 120 ECTS. There are some that are 1 year in duration. Most of these programs are at the School of Economics and Management, but there are other opportunities for some faculties to basically go for a 1 year program as well. But most of them are 2 years in duration. They are course-based, and they're all concluded with a thesis or a degree project, which is very, very cool. So most of these, well, not most, but many of our programs are also truly unique, and they are interdisciplinary programs, which means that you will be studying courses not only at one faculty, you will be studying at several faculties, which is something that we highlight a lot and something that we think is very important, that you get knowledge from not only one subject, but from many subject areas, because that makes you a well-rounded and very good employee or student or researcher in the future. So the programs are also based on current research, and they are connected to industry and business in general, because obviously if we don't have that connection, the program would be fairly useless to you guys. There's also an opportunity to tailor your coursework with electives. A lot of our programs actually offer elective courses, which means that you can select the courses and the focus that you would like to have in your degree, which is fantastic. So they're fairly flexible. This is not the case for some of our programs, and it's more difficult with the 1 year programs, but many of the 2 year long programs have a lot of electives, which means that you can tailor your knowledge and basically aim for a specific type of knowledge and a specific type of career if you're interested in that. There's also a possibility to do internships or study abroad in many of these programs. And we have when we talk about study abroad, I think we have about 600 exchange agreements with different universities around the globe. So if you go for one of the programs where study abroad is an option, you will be able to select from a wide range of universities where you can also get additional knowledge besides just studying here at Lund University. And also very important to note is that all our master's degree programs will prepare you for a PhD career if you would like to do that, like a continued research career. And it's quite common that some of our most popular programs also produce a lot of really good students that will go on to do PhDs here at Lund or at any other university, in the world, basically. So I know that we have students going to ETH in Zurich and basically everywhere, which is just fantastic. So the general entry requirements is that you should have been awarded a bachelor's degree, or you must be enrolled in the final year of your bachelor's degree program when you make your application. So here we don't have the same restriction as we do for the bachelor's. You do not have to have completed your bachelor's. You can actually be in your last year when you are making your application. That's perfectly fine. And also you must prove that you meet the required level of English 6. And this is complicated for you guys, like English 6, what does that mean? But there is very detailed instruction on universityadmissions.se, what tests you need and everything to prove that you meet this required level. So no need to be worried. So the program-specific requirements are more interesting in many aspects, because you will need to go to each and every program you would like to apply to at Lund University, and you need to look at the tab called Requirements and Selection, because this is where every single program lists the specific requirements in order to be eligible for that program. And most of our programs require a previous studies or a major in the same subject or a similar subject to the actual master's degree program, because they're in-depth master's programs and they require that you have a certain knowledge before you start your program. Some programs are more flexible or even open to any previous major, and we actually have listed these on our webpage as well, so you can easily find them if you would like to change your career and go into a specific, well, new subject area, whatever. We actually have a list of the programs that are flexible or open to any previous major, so you can easily find them. But otherwise, most of our master's degree programs are in-depth masters. And also no GRE or GMAT is required for entry to Lund University programs. We're in Sweden after all, but if you have it, you can send it, but it's not a requirement. And also, as mentioned by Tim before, there are also country-specific requirements, and this is very important. Just like Tim mentioned, the country in this case, it's not necessarily your nationality. It's basically where you have studied before. If you have a degree from the US, you need to look at the country-specific requirements from the US. If you have a degree from the UK, you need to look for the country-specific requirements for the UK. And this is for where you completed your bachelor's degree, because that is what you're going to use when you make your application for a master's program. And also, it's very important to highlight here that students from certain countries must have a 4-year bachelor's degree. So even if you might have a 3-year bachelor's degree option in your home country, you might still need to have the 4th year in order to be eligible for studies in Sweden. This is a unique requirement for certain countries. You need to check what's it's like for your specific country, but it could be good to highlight. I know that in some countries it's possible to make either a 3 or a 4-year long bachelor's, and then in most cases you need a 4-year long bachelor's to be eligible. But there are certain exemptions to this rule as well, obviously. And where can you find these requirements? They're all listed at universityadmissions.se. That's where you can find this information. And yes, all applicants must prove their English language proficiency when you apply. This is very important. We get probably hundreds of questions every single year, and I guess Tim is getting more than me, but there's a lot of students asking when they make their application if they can provide their English certificate at a later date, and unfortunately you can't. So you need to provide this to us by the documentation deadline, which is the 1st of February. So if you haven't signed up for an English test and you know that you need to make an English test, I highly encourage you to do that as soon as possible so you get the results on time to make your application. Unfortunately, a lot of really good students miss this requirement every year, and then unfortunately they can't be admitted. So if you're in a situation where you need to take an English test to prove that you have English 6, book an English test as soon as possible and make it as soon as possible, and you will be fine. And yeah, this is good actually. We had the slide in English 6, I love it. So it's required for most of our programs, English 6. There are some that require even higher proficiency. And you can basically prove this by your upper secondary education, by previous university studies, or an internationally recognized English test like IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge. There are certain versions of that test as well that you can use. And it's all listed on the universityadmissions.se webpage. When it comes to upper secondary education and previous university studies, you need to check the country-specific web pages as well, because it's usually listed there if it's possible for you to use this as a means of proving that you meet the English language proficiency requirements. So it's on universityadmissions.se, and I highly encourage you to take some time and read through that page carefully. And also, of course, non-EU EEA citizens are required to pay tuition for the studies here at Lund University. And in order to find out what the actual tuition fee would be, you need to go to each and every program-specific webpage, because it's listed on each and every webpage. For the programs, we usually get questions from students like, oh, what would you like? What would this specific subject area cost? And it's almost impossible for us to tell you guys, because it's very individual. Like some programs might have a lab work, for instance, which is very expensive, unfortunately, while other programs might have less time in the lab and therefore is slightly less expensive. So the programs have specific price tags on them. The tuition fee might differ quite a lot, even within the faculty, but there's a very good reason for that. And I can just highlight this immediately. Like, we're a public university, we're not for profit, we're not allowed to make a profit. Whatever we get from tuition fees has to go back into the education. So the actual cost is based on the cost for us basically to offer this program. But there are a wide range of tuition fees. You need to check that on each and every program-specific webpage. And yeah, good. So you can see that every single program webpage has a tab called tuition fees. That's where you can see it. And also, good to mention, EU, EEA citizens are exempted from tuition fees. You're considered to be Swedish in this aspect, so you do not have to pay tuition fees in Sweden. So Tim, when are they supposed to apply?
Yes, that's a very good question, Daniel. And well, as many of you listening and watching today know, you can apply for studies right now because we opened on Monday for international degree studies beginning in late August 2024. And the fact that you're attending this webinar today shows that you're very prepared and ready to make a complete and correct application. So, when to apply for bachelor studies? As I just said, the international application round is open now. You have until the 15th of January to apply, and all documents are due by the 1st of February. Admission results are announced in April 11th, this application round, I do believe. So that's the big day when you're going to log into your university admissions account and hopefully see that green light which says that you're admitted to studies. And as I mentioned already, studies will begin in late August, early September, which is a beautiful time of year here in Sweden, the end of summer, just after our fantastic arrival and orientation period for new students. So the above information was the international application round, and this is the Swedish application round, which we recommend for only EU EEA citizens. So if you're not, I'll just go back for one moment there. If you're not an EU EEA citizen, these are the deadlines that you have to stick to, and they're established by university admissions, not Lund University. You have to follow those deadlines. But if you are an EU citizen, you do have the option to apply in the Swedish application round, which is from the 15th of March to the 15th of April. So you do have a little bit longer to select your programs there. And the best aspect of this for our EU citizens is that all documents are due by late June, early July. So if you're completing your upper secondary studies now, this does in fact give you a little bit extra time to finish your upper secondary school studies, receive all your final documents which you need for your bachelor's applications, and then still be admitted in late July, although you will note that the timeline on this Swedish application round is quite a lot more condensed. So you will have much less time to prepare and move to Sweden if you get admitted, but that's how these things go. And studies will still, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think we could highlight, like, if you are about to apply for bachelor's and you're an EU EUA citizen, but you have already finished your secondary education, so you could potentially apply in the early round, we would still highly encourage you to apply in the early round if you have been on a gap year of some sort, so you actually finished earlier. Please apply in the earlier round because it gives us more time to help you as well. So, but if you're actually completing your upper secondary education now, yes, then obviously this is an option for you. I just wanted to highlight that really quickly.
Perfect. Exactly. Thanks, Daniel. So absolutely apply in the first international round if you have all your documents ready. And the international application round for master's studies also follows the same date. So you can apply from now until the 15th of January. You've got a lot of time to scroll through all our programs which we offer, make your decision, and you have to select and rank your programs by the 15th of January with all documents due by the 1st of February. For our master's studies, admission results will be announced in late March. So the 21st of March is the magic day for you, this application round. And again, the academic semester starts in late August, early September. So you're probably looking at this cycle and thinking, okay, I've actually got quite a lot of time. And you do. The application round is quite drawn out and quite long here in Sweden. What Daniel just said before and what I'm going to reiterate now again is that it's always better to apply early. The earlier you make an application, the more time our admissions team has to double check your application. And if there is anything wrong, you can correct that. So if you have everything ready and in order, then we strongly encourage you to apply now There's no point waiting until the last minute if you can make your application now or in November or in December, for example. All right, everyone. So this is a very, very important website if you haven't discovered it already, and that is universityadmissions.se. So when you're applying for studies in Sweden, no matter which Swedish university you are applying to, all applications are made online at this national application portal, which is universityadmissions.se. And if you're applying actually in the Swedish application round, you have to apply on the Swedish version of this website, which is called antagning.se. But if you're applying in the international application round, you will apply here at universityadmissions.se. So let's go through a quick checklist, and we can give you a few more details to make sure you haven't missed any key steps. So step number 1, go to the website which I just mentioned, universityadmissions.se, and make sure and create your account there. Make sure you are the one who has access to your account, and make sure that you have an email address when you're creating your account that you have access to and check regularly. Here at Lund University, we will be using the email address that you use to create your account to send you important application information, reminders about events, tips and tricks for your application, and other useful information as well. So make sure you use an email address that you have access to and check regularly when you make your account. Step number 2, select your programs. So as myself and Daniel have already mentioned, select the programs that you want to apply for and that you are eligible for. There's no point applying for programs that where you don't meet the entry requirements. And as Daniel already mentioned, we have a comprehensive range of international degree programs. Lund University is a comprehensive university. Look through our program offering and you should be able to find some programs which you're interested in and that you're also eligible for. When you're applying for master's studies, you can apply to up to 4 programs. And at bachelor's level, you can actually apply up to 8 programs. And you can apply for programs at one or several different universities in Sweden. And that is, of course, your choice. Now, step number 3 is incredibly important, and that is ranking your program choices in order of preference. So I've just mentioned that you can choose 4 programs at master's level or 8 at bachelor's level, but you should not think of them, you should not think that you're applying to all of those programs equally. You really need to choose which program is your first choice. That's the program that you're applying to. All the other choices are only backups. If you do not get into your first choice, then you will be considered for your second choice. You cannot get admitted to multiple programs. So if I was to give you a piece of advice, I would actually recommend you to put a Lund University program as your first choice, because admission to Lund University is well, I think, Daniel, you would agree that admission to Lund can be competitive. We are a world top 100 university. This is a very desirable university to study at, and we strongly recommend you to put a Lund University program as your first choice. And as Daniel can tell you as well, an additional tip is that if you're applying for a scholarship, you need to put a Lund University program as your first choice as well. So if you really, we're looking for some tips and tricks today from this webinar, please remember that we strongly recommend you to put Lund University as your first choice when ranking your programs. And the deadline to select your programs, as we've already said, and rank them in order of preference is the 15th of January. Do not forget that date, mark it down in your calendar, and ideally select your programs long before this date comes around. And step number 4, of course, submit all required documents, including proof of English proficiency, by the 1st of February document deadline. And again, you can submit these documents much earlier as well. Many applicants can submit their application online on the university admissions portal, although, as Daniel already mentioned, every single applicant needs to check the country-specific requirements, because There are a number of countries where you will need to have your official transcript posted directly to university admissions, for example. So please check the country specific requirements that apply to you. Well, we're still going through these steps, but Daniel, I feel like I've been talking for quite a while, so I think I can hand over to you so you can offer some valuable insights.
Of course. So for bachelor's applicants, as mentioned before, you need to send your record of completed upper secondary education. So you need to be this. It has to be completed. I mean, we can't get this point through enough. You can't use preliminary or expected grades. They are not considered. You need to have a completed upper secondary education with the diploma and the transcripts when you make your application. So we need to see that you have an awarded degree certificate. We need to see proof of English proficiency, which could be an English language test, or in some cases, if you have studied in an English-speaking country, you could potentially be exempt from this requirement, but it's all listed on universityadmissions.se. We also need to see a copy of the page in your passport with your personal data and a photograph or some other type of national identification document. We just need to know who you are. So this is not something that you should freak out about. Like we get the question every single year, I do not have an international passport. What do I do? I mean, driver's license, some sort of ID card, just something so that we can see that you are you is sufficient in this part of the process. The international passport, you don't need that really until you're admitted and you need to go to Sweden. But in this stage, we just need to see who you are. So you need to upload some sort of identification document to the portal. And the master's applicants, we need to see your transcripts and awarded degree certificate if you have one at the moment. Because as mentioned before, you can actually apply in the last year of your bachelor's. So then you wouldn't have your degree certificate, but then transcripts is fine. We will also require, as you can see in the bottom here, you need to submit an official documentation from your university that is certifying that you are enrolled in your last year, and that to combine with your transcripts should be sufficient for us to be able to deem if you're qualified and deem if you're actually competitive, and also make the decision to admit you or not, basically. We also need a copy of a page in your passport, and we need to see proof of English language proficiency. That's exactly the same as for the bachelor's applicants. There's no difference there. And also this, once again, we need to highlight this, the country-specific requirements, you need to check this. It's very important. Unfortunately, every single year, we have students that are missing just small details when it comes to how you're supposed to transmit your supporting documents, especially transcripts and diplomas. So there are certain countries where you need to have your diploma, but you also need to have it scanned both front and back, because sometimes you actually have stamps on the back of the paper, and we need to see those in order to verify that it is a legit document. So if you have missed that, you might actually strike out. So that's why you need to go to the country-specific web pages on universityadmissions.se and check exactly how you're going to send your transcripts and your diploma. And as mentioned by Tim before, some countries, if you've been studying in these countries, you need to have your university send your documents straight from their office to university admissions. And it's very important that this is done, because if you are scanning them yourself, you would not be eligible. So read the country-specific requirements. It's not that complicated, really, but if you do it, you will be fine. But there's just so many students that miss this every year, so please don't. The program-specific documents are also very important. This is in order to be eligible for a specific program. So you have the general entry requirement that you need a bachelor's degree or you need upper secondary education completed. But the program-specific documents could basically be anything that is required by the program in order to be able to select the best students that are suitable for this specific program. So some, and actually most of our master's degree programs ask for additional program-specific documents. It could be CVs, it could be statement of purposes, it could be a portfolio, for instance. And the most important thing here is that you need to visit the webpage of each of our programs to check. So on the program-specific web pages, you can see if you need to submit these documents. So you click on the tab apply, and you should also be, no, sorry, check the tab apply. So that's yeah, tired here. So on the program specific web pages, there's a certain part that says selection and application. You can basically check there for program specific documents. And one thing we would highlight here is please only submit the documents that are asked for. We have so many students that are submitting a CV for programs where it's not necessary. And to be honest, you're basically wasting your time because we were not even allowed to look at these documents. So just submit the documents that are asked for the programs you're applying to. And when you're applying for bachelor studies, we get this question a lot as well. Like, do you need a recommendation letters? Where I'm going to send my recommendation letters? For the bachelor's level, there are no program-specific documents required. We only need to see your upper secondary education to see that you actually have the English proficiency, and then everything is taken from there. So no program-specific documents required when you're applying for a bachelor's program in Sweden. Well, not in Sweden, but at Lund University at least. And step 5, very important as well, in order to have your application processed, if you are non-EU EEA, you need to pay the application fee by the 1st of February. If you EU EEA, you would have to submit proof that you are a citizen of the EU EEA, which is basically a passport or some other document that prove that you are exempt from paying. And then as soon as you have paid, or as soon as you have proven that you are exempt, the program, or actually the admissions officers, will be able to start processing your application. Unfortunately, they will actually not touch your application until this has been proven or has been paid. So that could be good for you to know as well. I mean, Timothy told you to start early, but I mean, if you start early and then you wait until the last day, 1st of February, to pay, yeah, no one will have been looking at your documents during that time. So if you make a complete application already in December, please also try to pay in December, because that means that we could start processing your application. Because by law, we are not allowed to start processing it until we know if someone has paid or is exempt from paying. So that could be good to know. And this is the application fee, guys. It's not the tuition fee. That's usually a bit of a misconception. Like, students get this confused every single time. There's a small fee for making an application, and then there's a fee for actually studying the program. And this is the application fee we're talking about.
And I do actually have something to add here as well. Daniel, first of all, about the application fee, that goes to university admissions, and there's only one application fee that you need to pay for your entire application. So just to be clear, that's not an application fee to Lund University, it's to university admissions. And well, the staff there, they're looking through hundreds of thousands of applications. So we really thank them for their amazing hard work that they do every single year. The second thing is about proving your exemption for the application fee, which Daniel mentioned. So every year we get a lot of emails closer towards the end of January from our EU applicants, and they say, oh, I uploaded my proof of EU citizen or EEA citizenship 2 days ago, but it still says in my application account that I'm fee liable. Well, that's because we just received so many applications that it's not like you're going to get instantly confirmed that you're tuition fee exempt. So just remember that as long as you upload proof of your EU or EEA citizenship on time, you will not be required to pay tuition fees or the application fee. But it might take some time, a couple of days, maybe a week, maybe even longer, for it to be registered in the system. So just remember that. And of course, if you want to get around that, just go ahead and upload your EU citizenship now, and you won't have to deal with that issue. All right, well, this does lead quite nicely into this topic. If you're not a non-EU EEA citizen, and as we mentioned, you have to pay an application fee of 900 Swedish crowns to university admission. So for those of you not familiar with the current exchange rates, it's about 90 euros ish. In order for your application to be assessed, there's only one application fee per round, even if you apply for multiple programs. So some other countries, you have to pay an application fee to every single university that you apply to. So what you're seeing here is a really nice aspect of the Swedish system, where you only have to pay one application fee. And it must the application fee must reach university admissions in Sweden by the 1st of February. So we absolutely recommend to pay this application fee using a credit card rather than a bank transfer, because bank transfers, well, they can get very complicated and there can be mistakes and they can take a long time. So strongly recommend you to use a credit card there. And there's instructions about how to make that payment on the university admissions website as well. If you are a European Union citizen or EEA citizen, you do not need to pay the application fee. And as we've already mentioned, submit your proof of your citizenship status to university admissions. Copy of your passport or other official documentation will suffice, and make sure this is uploaded by the 1st of February. So just to summarize, if you didn't mark it in your calendar already, there's 2 deadlines to keep in mind. The 15th of January is the deadline for you to select your programs and for you to rank them in order of preference. And remember what we said, we strongly encourage you to put a Lund University program as your first choice. And the second deadline to remember is the 1st of February, and that's the document deadline and the application fee deadline, which we just talked about before. After you make your application is then assessed by expert admissions officers. And on the program webpage, you can learn more about the selection criteria for each program. In case you're wondering about this, university admissions evaluates your that you meet the general entry requirements. If you do, your application is passed along to the university, where our specialists look into if you meet who meets the selection criteria the best. But of course, go to the program page to find out more details about exactly what qualifies you for a specific program and what the selection criteria is. And as myself and Daniel have already mentioned, the big day is March 21st, 2024 for master's applicants and April 11 for bachelor's applicants. All right, now Daniel, you are quite an expert in this area, so I think I'm going to hand it over to you, and that is what living costs look like while studying at Lund University.
Yes, I mean, this is obviously something that's very important for you guys to know even before you make your application, because I mean, we are well aware that, I mean, studying abroad is expensive. I mean, it's not only like the tuition fees and everything, you also have to relocate to a new country. And I mean, yeah, you need to know beforehand, like, what will the cost be? So we have a nice little budget breakdown here, I think. But the living cost, obviously, it depends on your lifestyle quite a bit. I mean, you can live life any way you want. You can live it large or you can live it on a small budget. It's perfectly fine. But what we recommend for students is to have approximately about 850 euros per month to cover all living expenses. So that would be food, accommodation, course literature, other expensive hygiene products, everything you might need to survive in Sweden. And with 850 euros per month, you should be able to live a good life. So that's very good for you to know, like 850 euros per month, that is what we recommend. Non-EEA citizens, this is also very interesting for you guys to know. You must have this funding for your living cost for 1 year at a time. You need to be able to have that in a bank account, in your own bank account. It has to be in your name. It can't be a shared account. It has to be your funds. And you need to be able to show this when you apply for a residence permit. And in order to get the residence permit at the time now, when we're speaking, it's roughly 800 euros per month you need in order to reach the minimum limit required by the migration agency in Sweden. So if you're from a non-EU country, you need to show beforehand that you can support yourself for a minimum of 12 months in order to get a residence permit for 1 year when you start your studies. So that's could be good for you to know. EU citizens, you don't really have this requirement. You can basically move freely within the EU, so you don't need to worry about this. But still, you need to have roughly 850 euros per month to have a good student life in Sweden. And obviously, you can get by on less, but we just want you to have a reasonable expectation on what life in Sweden will be like. So now when you know that it might be a bit expensive to study and live in Sweden in general, I mean, it is expensive to study abroad. You might be thinking, how should I fund my studies? Which is a very valid reasoning at the moment. So there are some scholarships and other funding options that we would like to highlight in this presentation here. So we can start by talking about the Lund University Global Scholarship. And this is we like to consider it to be more of like a tuition fee reduction. So all non-EU citizens are eligible to apply, and it's a partial scholarship, so you can get between 25 and 90% of the tuition fee paid. Unfortunately, we are not able to provide for living costs, and it's also a very merit-based and a very, very selective university scholarship. So we can cover up to 90% of the tuition fee, and it's up to you when you make your application to tell us how much you would need in order to be able to start your studies. So the application will be in February, so it will be after you have made your application for studies. But you can then select if you need between 25 up to 90% of the tuition fee, and we will do our very best to try to match this if you're a competitive student and we can see that you have been admitted to a program. And yeah, you could get up to 90% of the tuition fee paid. And the Lund University Global Scholarship is, as far as we know, the largest university scholarship in Sweden. It's very well funded, but still, unfortunately, we obviously can't help all students because that would be completely impossible. We are way too popular. We have way too many students applying every year, but we do our very best to help as many as we can. If you are not able to come to Sweden with only the tuition fee covered, maybe you're from a country and you need to basically have full coverage of both the tuition fee and the living costs, there is a very good other scholarship in Sweden called the Swedish Institute Scholarship for Global Professionals. This is a selective and very nice scholarship. Unfortunately, it's only for citizens of 41 different countries, and it's only students from these countries that can apply. And on their website, you will see what countries these 41 countries are. But the good thing is that if you're able to get the Swedish Institute Scholarship, they will pay for everything. They will pay your tuition fees, they will pay for your living costs, they will even pay for the relocation, basically for your travels to Sweden and back if necessary as well. So this is fantastic. A very good thing to highlight here that a lot of students miss every year is the fact that they do require that you have some sort of leadership experience and also that you have work experience. So the leadership experience needs to be somewhat proven by documents from some sort of employer or NGO or some sort of organization so that they know that you have been working, because they are looking for what they call future global leaders. They would like to see that you're a person that could work to make the world a better place. If you can get that into your motivation letter for this scholarship, you should be in a better position than you were beforehand. So, but it's also very good for you to know that even if you can't get any of these, there are also some program-specific scholarships that are basically tailored for some of our programs here, where we have received funds from organizations that would like to sponsor students at specific programs. And you can find information on our website about these. There's also country-specific scholarships. We even have a list on our website with scholarship organizations that we're working with or that we are aware of that they do exist in your home countries. And that's something we would like to highlight for everyone applying to our university, that there are other types of funding. They're not necessarily from us. And I think that would be the next slide. I'm not sure, but I think so. Yes. So you can never rely on the scholarship provided by Lund University and the Swedish Institute, as they are very competitive. I mean, obviously, if you get them, you can rely on them. It's very interesting phrasing here. If you get a scholarship from the Swedish Institute and the Lund University Global Scholarship, obviously you can rely on them. But if you are relying on only applying to these scholarships in order to be able to get here, I'm sorry to say that they're very competitive and you might not make it. So what you need to do is also search for other scholarship organizations, and you should start this process early on. So you should search for external scholarships and organizations. There are probably foundations in your home country that might be able to help you. In some countries, there's even bank, like you can apply for a student loan from a bank or from other sort of lending institution, and that's perfectly fine as well. I mean, if you're able to find other types of funding, some other scholarship organization, even if it's not listed on our website, please let us know, because I mean, we have worked with so many different organizations in the world. If you find a legit, really good funding option and we're not aware of it, we will make our very best to help you to get here with that type of funding option. So there should not be any reason to worry. And yes, have a plan B for how to fund your studies early on. you should basically start looking into how to fund your studies now. I mean, yes, you can apply for the Swedish Institute scholarship and the Lund University Global Scholarship and hope that that's the only way of getting here. That's perfectly fine as well, but please check around. There might be other funding options available. We do get a lot of students here every year with funding from other sources like NGOs or from state-run scholarships in their home countries. So start early, start looking now. And top 10 tips for a successful application for studies. This is also very, very good. So the most important thing here, guys, make sure that you meet all the entry requirements before applying. We can't state this enough. I mean, check the country-specific requirements. It's very, very, very important. That's step 2 here. You need to make sure that you are meeting the country-specific requirements when you are sending your documents, when you're documenting your previous studies and your English proficiency. Also, make sure that you have a way of showing that you meet the English proficiency. That's step 3 here. And if you haven't at the moment, you should check this already today to get an idea. Do I meet the English requirements? If you don't, start now. Look into how to take a test or whatever you need to do in order to meet these requirements. Start now, because it will be very competitive the closer you get to the application deadline, because most universities have application deadlines at a similar time, and it's difficult to get the test later. So try to make it as soon as possible, so start now. And also, as Tim mentioned, you have to choose and rank your programs in the order you most want them by the 15th of January. You can't make it after the 15th, so start to think about what order you want them in. Because like Tim said, it's not like you're applying for 4 different programs. You're applying to 1 program and 3 backup options. So you need to make sure that you're having the program you really want at the top. And if you want to get to Lund, you need to keep a Lund University program as your main priority. I used to say that if you're good enough to get into Lund University, you would be good enough to get into any university in Sweden, which means that if you're applying to someone else, you will get in there and not to Lund. So if Lund is actually the main reason why you would like to study in Sweden, keep us as your #1 choice, because otherwise you will not get here. That's a fact. And also pay the application fee or prove that you're exempt early on so that we can start processing your application, because we would really like to help you to get here if possible. And also the documents, try to organize them and submit them as early as possible. We know that it might be tricky and difficult, especially if you're in your final year of your bachelor's. You might want to send an additional transcript later on so that you can actually prove that you have completed more courses, and that's perfectly fine as well. But just to highlight, you can also apply early on with the transcript and then send an additional transcript before the documentation deadline. That's perfectly fine as well. We will look at both of them. So you can actually send it as soon as possible, or we would highly recommend you to start your process as soon as possible. And also prepare the program-specific documents according to the instructions. And this is for the master's applicants, because that could also be good for you to know that certain programs would require you to send everything to university admissions. Others have requirements that you should send some documents straight to the program staff. So you need to check this as well on the program-specific web pages so you do not strike out. It's very important as well. And if you have questions, if you find something on a web page that you do not really understand, that makes it very complicated, obviously, Tim, me, and all our colleagues are available for you. You can just send us an email and we will try to explain to you what you need to do. And also ensure that all documents are readily available by the 1st of February. And then, yeah, the deadlines are strict, as we mentioned before. If you miss a deadline, unfortunately, we will not be able to process your application. And also check your University Admissions in Sweden account and your email account regularly for any updates when you have made your application. Because if you make your application early, if someone finds a problem with your application, we will be able to hopefully inform you about the problem and you will have time to fix it. So make sure that you check your email account regularly. Also make sure that you check the spam folder, because unfortunately, since we have tens of thousands of applicants every year, we send tens of thousands of emails, which means that sometimes our emails are getting marked as spam by certain email providers. But you need to check that as well. Check the spam folder just to make sure that you haven't missed any of our important emails. And yes, Tim.
Yes, all right. And there's a couple of other ways where you can, connect directly with us and hear more about what me and Daniel have been saying for the last hour, which is that Lund is absolutely fantastic. So another amazing aspect of Lund University is our beautiful campus, and you can take a virtual tour of Lund University and see with your own eyes how amazing Lund really is. And you can take a look in the chat to see a link which our amazing colleague Nana has posted, and I can see she's been posting a number of other very useful links as well. So thank you so much for that, Nana, but highly recommend you sit down, take half an hour to go through this amazing virtual tour, which has interactive aspects, up-to-date photos, a commentary about each section, videos that you can watch. This virtual tour is awesome. Please do take a look. And you can actually chat with 80 of our current students using an app called UniBuddy as well, which is fantastic. So perhaps you've heard a lot of great information from us today, but you want to actually hear it from a student from your own country or a student who's studying the program that you're interested in. So you can go via the link in the chat to chat with our current students and be like, what is it actually like to come from Nigeria to Sweden? If you're from Nigeria, for example, what's it like being from the US and studying international marketing and brand management? You can ask our current students these exact questions and hear what they say based off their own personal experience. You can also follow our current students on Instagram at our international account at Lund University. And this is a fantastic way for you to see with your own eyes student life at Lund, and also get some other interesting updates about the university, such as news and other important information as well. And a new project which we're very excited about as well, you can listen to the Lund University International podcast, where you hear colleagues like Daniel, myself, Nana, who's in the back end, and current students, professors, teachers, staff, visitors, everyone talking about student life in Lund. So perhaps you're getting interested in Lund and you're currently working, for example, and you have a daily commute. What better thing to do than to listen to the Lund University International podcast while you're commuting to work? And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So Daniel, thank you so much for all your words of wisdom, and Nana as well for giving so much information in the back end in the chat. And what we want to do now is open up for a live Q&A. I can see that we've actually already answered a number of questions here, but there's plenty more coming in. So let's get started with that as well, because it's always good to answer your specific questions. And I can see the first question. Just also remember, I'll just make sure to turn on. Yes, you can upvote the questions as well. So if you please quickly scroll through all the questions, if you see one that is similar to your question, then like that, it will go to the top of the queue, and me and Daniel will actually know which question is the most popular. But also, we're going to try and answer every single one as well. So no need to stress too much. And Nana's going to help us too. All right, so let's have a look here. There's a question from Nicole, who's asking, if there are any problems with my documents, will admissions let me know if I apply early? And the answer is almost certainly yes. And that's one of the reasons why we do tell our applicants to actually apply early. So if you apply now in October or November or early December, university admissions staff are actually going to do a quick preliminary check. And if there is something missing, they will send you a notification in your university admissions account. So for example, if there's a problem with your English proficiency, if a document has not been uploaded correctly, you're going to get you're almost certainly, I don't want to say definitely because there are a lot of applicants, but almost always you're going to get a notification telling you that you need to upload something different or correct. So Nicole, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that, because that really reiterates that point that me and Daniel were talking about, that you should apply early, because if there's something wrong, you have a chance to correct it.
I have a question here that I think is very interesting as well. It's about the English proficiency requirements. So Nikki is asking here if if she could submit a paper from our current university to prove our English level instead of an IELTS test. And this is a very good question. I actually get it quite a lot from students. Unfortunately, like a document, some sort of like statement from the university that you are proficient in English is not enough. I'm sorry to tell you that straight away. I mean, yes, you can prove your English proficiency with your previous education, like your bachelor studies. That's perfectly fine. But in that situation, it's very important that it's stated on the actual transcripts and the diploma that the education was in English language. There are some other requirements and exemptions, and so as well. So you need to check the English proficiency section on universityadmissions.se. But yes, sometimes it is possible to prove your English proficiency with your previous education, but a letter from the university stating that you're proficient would not be sufficient, not even a letter stating that the education was in English. If it's not stated on the diploma or the transcript, unfortunately, that will not be enough with a normal letter. So that could be just good to highlight.
All right, here's a question, and this is the kind of question that we love to hear. So Huimin has paid the application fee and submitted all documents already. We've only been open for 2 days. So that is fantastic. You're the perfect student. I'm very sure, hopefully we're going to be welcoming you to Lund next August. And I want to know, may I ask, when will the staff start to check the documents? Is there an approximate time? So Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I actually don't think there is, we can't sort of definitively say they will check them within a week or within the next couple of days.
No, so the fact of the matter is, I can tell you straight away, at the moment, I mean, if we tell you to apply early, I know that they've just finished processing another application round. So I think that the next couple of weeks is probably devoted for them to fix potential errors in the last application round, to go through, like, if there's been students that had any reason to appeal or something like that. So I know that there's a bit of a gap now between like the different application rounds where they might not be able to look at this one. They will process some students in this round as well, obviously, because they're working all the time, you know. So if they get time available, they will obviously start processing applications already now, these like first 2 weeks of the application round. But there's no guarantee, because if they get any other like appeals or anything from previous application rounds, they will have to prioritize them. So it's impossible to say. I mean, it's very good to make the application this early, because now we actually have the opportunity to look at your application documents, but we can't say anything in specific about when they will look at them, because it depends on what's going on with other tasks as well. So we don't really know. Sorry, guys, but it's very good to make your application early, because it gives us the opportunity to actually look at them.
I would say check back at this stage, check once a week, or if you're really enthusiastic, twice a week in your university admissions account. That's my advice. All right, here's a question from Lucia, who will have all documents ready by the end of December. Do I still apply in the early round? Yes, absolutely. If you have everything ready by December, apply then, do it before Christmas, and then relax with your family over Christmas and let them know you're hoping to move to Sweden in the coming year.
Yeah, we have a question here. I applied to Lund University in 2021. I was on the waiting list. So if I'm applying again this year, will I be required to submit new documents again? This is a very good question. I like it a lot, because obviously, I mean, if you applied and you were on the waiting list, it means that you were eligible for the program. So if you're applying to the same program again, and if we haven't changed the eligibility requirements for that specific program, you would be potentially done. However, if you're applying again for 2024 and you applied in 2021 last time, please, you might want to check if there's like specific requirement documents, like a motivation letter, for instance, or a CV. I would update those documents for sure. I would make a new CV, I would make a new motivation letter and make my application. But otherwise, I mean, if you were eligible back then and you had like the documents completed, you do not have to send your transcripts and your diploma again. If you're applying in your last year of studies though, and you now have your degree certificate or your diploma, you need to upload that to us, and also new completed transcript, because you could have been on the waiting list and not been completed with your bachelor's degree studies. And if that's the situation, you need to upload both the completed transcripts and the degree certificates. But if you are done already in 2021 with those documents, you only need to do the program specific documents again, like CV, motivation letter, statement of purpose, or whatever they might require. I would recommend that, but otherwise you should be set.
All right, a quick one from Denise. When are applications results announced? Yes, that's 21st of March for masters, 11th of April for bachelors. All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you. So if you, this is another good question. If I have someone already in Sweden, can he or she help to pay my application fees, or must I be the one that pay? This is a very interesting question, and to be honest with you guys, we sounds like a scam, this, but we don't actually care who's paying. Sorry, but I mean, it is possible. I mean, if I know from certain countries it might be difficult to pay online, for instance, and like Tim mentioned, it's better to pay with a credit card. Maybe you don't have a credit card. It's perfectly fine if your brother, mother, whatever pays with their credit card. That works. So it doesn't have to be you that paying the application fee. That's perfectly fine. It could be anyone. So I know that from certain countries at the moment there might be sanctions, and then it's very common that relatives abroad might be able to pay from their bank account or from with their credit card instead, and that's a very common way of doing it. So it doesn't have to be you; it can be anyone.
Ronja is asking, is there no chance to be accepted to Lund if you put them on second place on the ranking? Well, the chance is a lot lower, Ronja, a lot lower, because as Daniel said, if you can get into Lund, you can almost certainly get into other Swedish universities as well. So it is technically possible that if you put Lund as your second choice and you get declined for your first choice, that you could get accepted as your second choice, but that's not a very logical or strategic way to actually make your application. So as Daniel and myself have actually mentioned, if you want to come to Lund, then we strongly recommend to rank Lund as your first choice. So as we've said before, it's not like you're applying to 4 or 8 programs. You apply to one program, and the other ranking choices are your backup if you do not get into your first choice. So we strongly recommend you to put Lund as your first choice. You will also only be able to receive a Lund University Global Scholarship if you put Lund as your first choice. So what have you got to lose, really?
Yeah, we could also mention, like, obviously there are other universities that are also highly ranked with that has like ridiculously competitive programs. And I guess that if you're into one of their programs, I mean, what we also would like to highlight, I mean, obviously Lund, if you really would like to come to Lund, you should put us as your number one choice. But otherwise, I mean, the most important thing is that you as a student find a program. The program is important. Like, what would you like to do in your future? And let's say that another university in Sweden actually offers a program that you really would like to study, but we have another one where you could also consider. I mean, obviously, yes, you could be considered for studies at Lund University if you were not able to get into that competitive program at the other university. But as Tim mentions, the chances are smaller. I mean, it's less because, I mean, usually most of our students are applying firsthand to Lund. So we don't really apply. Well, we don't really admit that many students that have applied second priority. It's not that common at all. So please keep us number one if you really want like to come to Lund. But obviously, the program is the most important thing. What you would like to do in the future, and if that is a program at another university, that's perfectly fine. Obviously.
All right, here's a great question, and we do get this one a lot of the time as well, and it's very understandable. From Aliyu, they want to know how to confirm if a transcript has received, if you are required for your university to send it. So I do believe, for example, applicants from Nigeria, as an example, there's other countries as well, they are required that their academic transcript is posted directly to Lund University, to university admissions from their home university. And we always, and this applies to some other countries as well, we have students asking, how do I know when my transcript's applied? You can, and that's a very understandable question. You can send an email to university admissions or to Lund University. Nana, if you could please put the contact form for contacting our staff in the chat, that would be much appreciated. And then we can just quickly check and confirm. But I think wait a couple of weeks or a month first, and then give us an email before you check that. But you can just email us and ask.
So here's a good question here as well. What about, let's see, with your apologies, we actually looks a bit confused. When people are uploading, the actual questions move about. So, so if I look confused, it's because it just moved. So here's a question about the English proficiency. So what about applicants who have a bachelor's degree from countries like Nigeria and are considered to already have sufficient English level proficiency because of that? Do applicants still have to upload other English language proficiency proofs? No, you don't. As long as, I mean, it's obvious, like you studied at an English university or English-speaking university, or you studied in Nigeria, you might have A-levels from there, and you can prove that, for instance, and that was in English language. No, you don't have to upload any other proof. So you don't need an English test or anything. The transcripts and the diploma should be sufficient, but you need to make sure that your transcript and diploma is up to the standard like required and listed on the country-specific web pages at the universityadmissions.se webpage. But if they are, you should be fine. So you should not worry.
All right, and Ami wants to know if we get the acceptance or rejection before March, or if it's done on a rolling basis. No, it's not. All admission results are announced at the same time, equally to everyone. Welcome to Sweden. This is how it works here. 21st of March or April 11th, everyone receives their admission results at exactly the same time.
So we have a question here. Does it affect my application if I need to renew my passport? My passport will expire in February, which is beyond the deadline. No, as a matter of fact, it does not. So no need to worry. I mean, you can upload. I mean, if you upload a passport that has expired, that might potentially be a problem, but usually it's not. I mean, the most important thing is, like, if it expires in February, it was actually valid when you uploaded it. We just want to see who you are. So you have plenty of time to make a new international passport for the time you get the decision of admission, or are going to start your studies and come to Sweden. So it doesn't affect your application at all. You can just send a copy of your passport, even if it will expire during the process. That's perfectly fine.
All right, here's a translation related question. That's the one that comes up all the time as well. From Nicole, who's saying, their university system can only generate a confirmation of enrollment in the Czech language. They want to know if they should translate it themselves or ask their university if they can send a confirmation in a different form, which will take time. Okay, this is a really good question. You need to check the country-specific requirements. This is my answer to everyone, because there is detailed translation instructions on each country-specific page. You generally need, as a general rule, you need to upload your documents in English or Swedish, although for bachelor's applicants, there are some exceptions. I believe it's okay. Oh, actually, no, I'm not going to go into details. Check that yourself. But you can't upload a transcript or a document in the Czech language. So it will need to be submitted in English. Nicole, I would actually say that you should actually ask if your university can send you an English transcript. That will be the best way. Otherwise, and this applies to everyone, you will need to have it officially translated into English. But in my experience, most universities are able to issue official documents in English in addition to the other language. So Nicole, see if they can get that issued in English, and you still have a lot of time, so you should be fine. Good question.
Also, just as a highlight, because from certain of the countries I usually work with, if you're going to send an official translation, also make sure that you send the original documents in the original language as well. So not only the translation, because that would mean that no one will actually process your application. So you need to send the actual transcript and the diploma in the original language and the certified official translation as well. We need to see both of them. So just to highlight, don't strike out because of that.
Thanks for raising that, Daniel. Actually, that was a fantastic point. Oh, well, there's a question up there that's again for Nana, so I think we'll leave that one. But here's Panagoita.
So here's a
Right.
question
Yeah.
of a
Sorry,
student
just
that
reading
actually
them.
yeah, that's right. Who has a 4 years degree and postgraduate diploma as well. Is it beneficial to add the transcript of the postgraduate diploma? I mean, to be honest with you, I can't see a reason why that would be a problem. So, I mean, if you have it, why not? Why not send it? I mean, it could also be good just to show that after you have finished your first degree, you have also done other things. So, yeah, please submit it. You have nothing to lose by submitting this document as well. So I would recommend you to do that.
All right, and this, I think this is a follow-up question from Panagiota, who's wondering if documents need to have the Hague stamp or if they need. Oh, that's two questions in one there. It's also asking about accommodation. I think it's a follow-up question to something that Nana already asked, but in terms of how you need to upload your documents, you need to check the instructions on university admissions because there are some quite clear and specific documents that apply to everyone. For example, that the stamp on your diploma needs to be clearly visible, for example, and check those yourself. The second part of this question is about making an application for accommodation. That is a separate topic. We have not really covered that much in this webinar and Q&A session today because we really wanted you to focus on getting into Lund University and making a complete and correct application. But it is a good question to ask. When you are admitted for studies, we're going to send you a whole lot of information with detailed step-by-step instructions about everything you need to do. So there's no need to worry. But we will also include information about accommodation. If you're a non-EU EEA citizen, as long as you apply on time, you make a separate application to Alio accommodation, and you are guaranteed to be given housing. That's for non-EU EEA citizens. If you are an EU EEA citizen, you are required to look for housing independently, but we'll give you a number of options to do so. And although it takes a little bit of effort, you're always going to find some housing that suits you. And on that note as well, Lund is a compact university town, so you can easily access all areas of our campus with a bicycle or bus. So yeah, there's a lot of positives there as well, and we will cover that in later webinars as well.
We have an interesting question here actually about the program-specific requirements. So some of the programs say that their selection criteria, including the quality of the bachelor's thesis, but I can't finish it by the admission deadline. Is there any substitute for that? So that's a very, very good question. I know that, well, at least previously, we had quite a few programs that required the bachelor's thesis so that they could actually check like the writing style and how competitive the student was. So when you have a program like that, and if you're not able to complete your bachelor's by the time of the deadline, what I would recommend you to do is basically contact the program coordinator, the person in charge of the program. You could even be the program director. There are contact details on the program-specific web pages for these people. So I would reach out directly to them, and I would ask if a writing sample would be enough. Because I mean, they might, I mean, to be honest, they will not read all students' bachelor's theses in detail because there wouldn't be time for that. So they have better things to do. So maybe sometimes you could send another type of paper, or you could send a writing sample from the ongoing thesis that you're working on. So I would actually contact them directly, and this might not be possible for all of these programs, but I would recommend you to contact them directly and see if there's any other way you can prove your competitiveness and your writing style.
Here is a good question from Anastasia, who is wanting to know about applying with a Swedish residence permit. Is it possible to send this document to prove EU citizenship? This is a great question. I'm glad it came up. There's a number of different residency statuses that you can have in Sweden if you're not a Swedish citizen. And the answer to this is, it depends what type of residency status you have. If you have a residence permit for work, then you can study tuition free, although you've got to remember that you're going to be required to study 40 hours a week or more as a student at Lund University. So you need to really think if you can juggle work and studies, although for high achieving students, it is possible. If you have a residence permit through through your partner, then yes, you can also study tuition free here in Sweden. However, there's some other types of residency permits which I'm uncertain about. So, Anastasia, it really depends which permit you have, and you don't actually a partner. Perfect. Okay, there you go. Yep, that's going to be fine. Lucky you. And yes, congratulations.
Seems like we might have ended. No, there's another one. Okay, perfect. So we have a question here. I'm a German upper secondary diploma student of 2023. I'm going to apply to the autumn semester in 2024. In the time between, I'm doing some Swedish studies and a freestanding course in economics on the bachelor's levels. Can I upload these certificates to prove I have been academically active in the overlap time between my graduation and the beginning of my bachelor studies? So I like how you're thinking here, Ronja. I mean, I know in certain countries it might be very important to show that you have like a consistency, that you've basically been studying, that you've been working hard, that you've been doing stuff like that. Here in Sweden, though, I mean, if you finished your bachelor's last year and you haven't been doing anything in the last year, to be honest, we don't really care. I mean, because to be honest with you guys, young students, I mean, it's very common in Sweden that a Swedish student would finish high school or upper secondary education, and then it's very common to go abroad for a year, just to travel, just do some random things or work for a year or something like that. That's not something at all that the universities in Sweden consider. So you don't have to show us what you've been doing the last year since you might have graduated. That's not necessary. If you want to upload anything to show that you've been studying, yes, please do, because I mean, why not? It might be that this freestanding course in economics on the bachelor's levels might actually make you eligible or even more competitive if you're, for instance, are applying for a business program here in Lund. But otherwise, I mean, you don't have to. We don't consider that to be necessary at all. It's very common that students come back to study after a year or two. That's perfectly fine. We never ask them what they've done in between that gap year. So that's fine.
All right, Daniel, I think we're going to have to answer this question together. It's from Muhan, who's asking about eligibility requirements, which can always be interesting, seeing as we deal from applicants from all over the world and have to convert the transcripts to match eligibility here in Sweden. Muhan's asking, do I need to convert the scores from other countries to Sweden's 20-point system when I submit the document? And unless you know what which program this person is applying to here, Daniel, I think we might, yeah.
I think that since we're talking about the 20-point system, I think we are potentially talking about a bachelor's applicant, I think. So because at the bachelor's level in Sweden, you can get up to 20 points in the like normal degree system. It's a very unique system because then they have added on top of that some extra points, if you want, some proficiency points in certain subjects that would give you extra points on top of those 20. But as a matter of fact, if you're applying for a bachelor's program, the only thing we need to see is your upper secondary education transcripts and the diploma. And then we do have regional experts. We have people working at the admissions office and at the University Admissions in Sweden office that are experts on every single regions. Quite frankly, a lot of these people are actually from this region themselves, and they're now working as experts here. So they will know how to convert the actual degrees from another country into the Swedish system. That being said, not to confuse anyone applying for the master's level, there are certain programs we have something called a summary sheet that you need to fill out. And in that summary sheet, we sometimes ask you to calculate your grade point average, for instance. And if that's the case, then you should do your very best and try to calculate it as neatly and nicely as possible and as like accurate as possible. But the fact of the matter is that when you're looking at the actual like degree certificates and the transcript, you don't actually have to do anything because the experts will look at them and they will make that evaluation and do the calculation for us. So no need to worry.
All right, Nicole, who I do believe asked the question about the documents in the Czech language previously. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole. by writing another question there. Wants to know if they can apply now with a current transcript and update it when a new one comes in December before the deadline. Yes, you can do that, absolutely. Although if you upload, for example, your Czech transcript now, and then a formal translation in English in December, you're probably going to get a notification from university admissions before December telling you that you need to upload a correct or a transcript in English. Just to let you know, you can do that now, or you could just wait until December and upload the correct one then. But very good that you're thinking about these kind of things now.
So I have a question here that I'm not sure if I completely understand, but does Lund University allow for time off to gain experience in the desired industry? If Lund does and they have a scholarship with the SI, would they take away the scholarship for the rest of the degree? So I guess that if you're coming here to study, and then let's say that you find, I guess, an internship or some sort of work. I mean, from our standpoint, like the university standpoint, I mean, if a student comes here to start the studies, and let's say that there's a consultancy firm here in the region that would like to hire you for a specific project or something, and you can get paid by them, and you can get like everything settled with them. From the study perspective and Lund University perspective, that's not a problem. You could potentially go out and start working for a while and then come back and finish your degree. However, that might not be the preferred way of doing it, because there might be other issues, like the Swedish Institute. If you have the scholarship, yes, they could potentially withdraw that. They would like you to just come, study, finish your degree, because if you were to leave, there's a high risk that you will not come back to finish your degree. You might just continue on working forever, you know, and they wouldn't like that. So you could potentially lose a Swedish Institute scholarship, and that would be a decision made by the Swedish Institute. So I can't speak for them, but I think that is actually a valid concern. But there's another thing that might be a greater concern, and that would be the migration agency. Because if you came here to study, you get a study residence permit. Yes, you're allowed to work on that permit. But let's say that you were to change the status, that you're no longer actually studying, you're working full time. That might lead to problems when you're trying to come back to study again. You need to be very frank and very careful in your communication with the immigration agency so that you can explain to them exactly what's going on and make sure that they say, yeah, this is okay. I mean, it is sometimes okay. I mean, if you finish your first year and then apply for a work permit and work for 1 year and then apply for a residence permit for studies again, there will be no problem. But if it's in between the actual like time and dates of your permits, there might be problems. So if you're interested in doing anything like this when you have started your studies, please talk with us. We have migration coordinators as well that can give you an insight in how to do that in the most efficient way possible. So that's all I can say about it.
Nice answer, Daniel. I just want to add here, as someone who's previously been an international student coming from outside the European Union, I know what it's like that students can get very enthusiastic about finding employment, part-time employment, or even looking for full-time employment while rigorously studying full-time during your degree. So yeah, as Daniel mentioned, just remember you do need to commit to your studies and complete your studies in order to satisfy the demands of the Swedish Migration Agency. And on a slight tangent here, which is a question that we get quite a lot as well, about working part-time as well when you're a student. Yes, that's possible and that's allowed on your student residence permit. However, just remember that it can be quite competitive, especially in Lund, although there's always options working in nearby towns or cities as well. So yes, it is possible. All right, there's a question up the top here that we have said we were going to answer, but we haven't, from Wang, and that is, some of the programs say that their selection criteria includes the quality of the bachelor's thesis, but I can't finish it by the admissions deadline. Is there any substitute for that? Did we answer this question yet, Daniel? Did
we did. Yeah, I think the problem is that
sorry.
I think we both were interested in answering it, and I think you clicked it, and then I answered it. That's why it's still
perfect,
there.
Perfect.
So we have another question here. How many international students are admitted in the bachelor programs each year? This is interesting. I mean, I should have known this, but I don't actually, because I mean, I am so focused on the regions I'm working with. So I'm not entirely sure. I know that there are international students every single year for every of our international bachelor's degree programs. But I do know more about the masters. So I don't exactly know, but I think our main goal, I mean, even if, I mean, basically it's nothing we can control because it's all about the competitiveness of the actual students applying. But I know that most programs would prefer if they could get a mix of 30% like Swedish students, 30% European students, and then 30% what we call international students. I mean, obviously the international students are also the European ones, but international students, this aspect would be students from outside the EU and EEA. That is like the preferred mix we would like to have in each program. But it's also very difficult to get that because you're competing on your academic merits, you know. So it is difficult to say like that's what we would like to have, like a very good mix of students from all over the world coming into our campus. But I'm not really sure how many are admitted in the bachelor's programs each year. And also being admitted, there's also like the question of like how many actually start their studies, because it's also difficult. I mean, finding the fundings, getting the actual residence permit, and yeah, there's loads of things. So I don't actually know. So if you have this question and you really would like to know, I guess that it's Muhan here. If you really want to know, you're more than welcome to send us an email and also highlight which program you're interested in, and we can check the statistics because the statistics are available to us. I mean, it's public. So just let us know. Send an email, and I will dive into this data for you. No worries.
All right, thanks so much for that one, Daniel. And there's a question here from Ronja again. If you have, or perhaps it's a different Ronja, who could say, if you have the Swedish citizenship but graduated in Germany, do you still have to upload a Swedish language certificate? For example, the thesis test. Well, this is a mixed question here. Ronja, it depends which program you're applying for. And this is a webinar about applying for our international degree programs taught in English. So you always have to prove your English proficiency. And if you're applying to one of our many Swedish degree programs, Daniel, I think you'll be better positioned to answer that question.
Yes, so Ronja, I mean, if you are also Swedish citizen, I mean, obviously, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that you know Swedish language. So, so the thing is, like, if you graduate in Germany, if you haven't studied Swedish, like at the like normal upper secondary education or through the actually normal studies, then you would have to make a thesis test if you want to study in Swedish language. If you're not interested in studying a Swedish language, you're not applying to any of our Swedish taught programs, then you need to basically show us that you know English language instead. So it depends on what you would like to study, just like Tim said. But I mean, if you are proficient in Swedish, if let's say one of your parents are Swedish and you might have been speaking Swedish since birth, if you can't prove that by having like the real upper secondary education with like Swedish involved as courses, you would have to take the thesis test. But I think that if you're fluent, if you're speaking Swedish from birth, I mean, usually that would not be a problem to do the thesis test. I would be highly surprised if it was a problem. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I haven't made it myself. Maybe I would fail miserably. I'm Swedish. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe I should take it before I actually speak about it.
I've been thinking about taking that test sometime in the future, actually. That's for those of you who don't know, it's like the thesis test. Based on if you pass that, you're officially fluent in Swedish, and it's yes. Side note, it's not relevant.
I'm not sure I am. I mean, who knows?
Daniel's obviously going to pass it. Me, it's up in the air, but it's not relevant to applying to our international English taught degree programs. Okay, Eden is asking about our fantastic colleague, Babs Kunle, who is the Regional Strategic Recruitment Manager for Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Cameroon, and Kenya. Babs will be available in the afternoon session of this webinar, or he dropped
also,
out.
I can actually say, like, I like this question, Eden, because yes, as a matter of fact, Babs was supposed to be in this webinar. So it might be that he actually informed you beforehand that he would run these webinars. I'm terribly sorry to say that I'm the stand-in. I'm the one taking his position here today because Babs had another meeting, actually. He got scheduled with a very important business meeting. He had to take that, and I had to jump in here like just a couple of days before I got notified that I needed to do this instead of him. So Bob should have been here, but he will be here in the afternoon. I think he's running the webinar with you then again, Timothy, right?
This afternoon, yep. So
yeah,
depending on what you're eating, what time it's going to be for you in your home country, me and Babs will be hosting an identical webinar at 4 p.m. Swedish time today. So in 4.5 hours. And then it'll be me and Babs. And yes, he's a fantastic person to talk to. We all know that. So you can join in then, and you can ask him questions directly as well, because he is, of course, an expert in his given area as well. All right. Well, we're still a little bit longer. So if any of the 40 people remaining still have any questions for us, please fire away. But if not, we can maybe start looking to wrap up today. So Nana, to our colleague Nana, who's been answering questions and writing in the chat, thank you so much for your assistance today. You really have given a lot of useful links to everyone attending. Thank you to everyone who's attended as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with all of you. Oh, here we go. One more question. All right, we can answer that one as well before we wrap up.
We could also just mention to everyone that if you want to save the links from the chat, you might want to go through it now and just copy them into a document or something so that you have them, because they might be lost after we finish this session. So that could be one thing you can do now if you're not interested in writing questions to us. So
exactly, we're always available. And I'm actually just going to check the this question from an Italian applicant right now, looking in university admissions. So yes, let's have a look here at, if you are from Italy, you can, yes, this is good for all bachelor's applicants. So documents issued in English, French, Spanish, German, Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, and Finnish don't need to be translated. But if you're from Italy, you will actually need to get your documents translated, and that needs to be translated by an official translator, by a translation company, or a person who works as a translator. So that should answer your question, Francisco. Time to get in touch with an official translator. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining today as well.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you too.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in autumn, next autumn in 2024, when we can welcome you to Lund University, and we have a number of other events which you can join in this application round as well. So thanks for today.
Thank you and good luck, guys.